West African army chiefs will meet to discuss preparations for a possible military intervention to restore democracy in Niger following the coup in July. The meeting of the Economic Community of West African States, otherwise known as Ecowas, in Ghana, comes after failed attempts to restore deposed President Mohamed Bazoum to power. 3 ECOWAS members currently under military rule themselves, that is Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, support the junta. Well, live now to Lagos, and we're going to speak to our West African correspondent, Mayeni Jones. Hello to you, Mayeni. So we've got a meeting taking place later today. There was a meeting of the AU on Monday. It seems that the 2 organisations may not be meeting in the middle on this.
Yes, ECOWAS seems to be mostly in support of military intervention, whereas the African Union has come out against it. So it's not clear what that will mean in terms of whether intervention will actually happen, but I think it's fair to say that ECOWAS is certainly keen to send a message that they're ready for an intervention if need be. They went from last week saying that a standby force would be put in place, but without giving much details, to now putting a meeting in place with defense chiefs in Accra today and tomorrow to talk about the practicalities of this intervention, how many troops each country can contribute, because ECOWAS doesn't have a central troop, so each member state has to contribute some troops, to talk about resources, to talk about some sort of framework that these troops can operate under. And I think they want to send the message to the junta in Niger that they're ready to intervene if need be, that they will do good on their threats.
Meanwhile, the new US ambassador to Niger is due in the country. I'm not sure if she's arrived. Hopefully you can confirm that for us. Her name is Kathleen Fitzgibbon. Any indication that she would be producing her credentials to the coup leaders?
So we don't have details as to when she's going to arrive. All that's been said is that she's coming later this week, so it could be any day now. And I think it's part of an acknowledgement by the US that they've been a bit on the back foot in the situation. They haven't had any kind of diplomatic presence on the ground. They're hoping that she's able to remedy this once she comes. But as you mentioned in your question, it's a tricky situation for the US. They haven't officially recognized the situation in Niger as a coup, but she obviously will not be able to present her credentials to President Bazoum, who's still under home arrest by the junta leaders. So it puts the US in a very tricky situation. If they officially acknowledge a coup legally, it means things like aid or some of the military support that it offers Niger may have to be halted. And we've seen in other countries, like in Egypt, for example, they haven't used the word coup in the past to talk about things that other countries have acknowledged were coups. So I think the ambassador coming later this week and how she kind of navigates the coming days will give a stronger indication as to how the US plans to deal with Niger and the government there moving forward.
Mayeni, and meanwhile the pressure is growing, isn't it? There's a looming humanitarian crisis according to the UN. As well as the 3 million, a further 7 million now at risk of food insecurity. And that security that the coup leaders said was one of the reasons they took power in terms of Islamist attacks. 17 soldiers now attacked. So things are not going well.
No, and I think if we look at the precedents in neighboring countries like Mali and Burkina Faso, where there have been coups, we've seen an escalation in violence there. We've seen increased attacks by Islamist insurgents that take advantage of the power vacuum, of the lack of support from Western nations to gain more ground and to carry out more attacks on civilian populations. So this is why the international community is concerned for Niger. They don't want to see a repeat of that escalation of violence there. But at the moment, a diplomatic solution seem very few on the ground. ECOWAS and ECOWAS leader told BBC's House of Service yesterday that they are struggling to speak to the junta. So it will be interesting to see whether this lack of communication leads to this dreaded military intervention, which many analysts say could have devastating consequences for an already very fragile region.
Mayeni Jones, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.